Hey guys, it would be helpful if I had the camera. It is day, I don't know, something in our quarantine. I think it's day 27 or something. Today must be April, maybe the 10th. I don't think it matters that much though, what the day is. So I hope that you guys are getting sleeping in late, binge watching, I don't know, eating a lot of things. But we are on lesson, whoops. We're on lesson 11. So this is a review of the 4 basic ways to solve a quadratic. And we're gonna practice some factoring today. You guys should be getting really good at factoring at this point. So the factoring, we're always gonna look for the greatest common factor, hence the word factoring. We're going to look for difference of squares. So if there are 2 terms that look like square numbers and you're subtracting them, and we're going to look for trinomials that maybe we do, if a is 1, the value of a is 1, so the coefficient of that quadratic term is just 1. Maybe we do the product sum game, maybe we do slide and divide. They're easy to factor. We are going to try to factor them. Part 2 to this, we're going to try square roots. So if you can get square roots, if there's no x term, you can get square roots or square numbers on both sides. Then you can find the square roots of both. You can do complete the square, and that's going to be when you basically create a perfect square trinomial by manipulating some things. And last but not least, you can always try the quadratic formula. So these are all methods that we are going to review today and that are helpful for you to know how to do. So in the first part of this, I will zoom in, and have you guys heard the howling at night at 8 o'clock? If you haven't, you should get out there and listen to your neighbors howling to thank the medical professional members who work in that field to try to help the crisis that's going on right now. We also have this guy. This guy came out with me to howl tonight. I think he might be a prairie dog. I don't know. But he's going to keep me company tonight. Because my family, they're all watching a movie while I do this. Okay, so here we go. So for number 1, if I look at that, it looks like I have a basic trinomial. So I am going to do the product sum game. And I'm going to multiply to negative 40. Combine to negative 6. I think that I have 4 and 10. I try to get to a negative 6, so I want negative 10 to win. So those should be my 2 factors. As soon as you get your 2 factors in the product sum game, make sure you put them in the 2 binomials. And then you're going to set that to 0. Draw a line. Set both sides to 0. X plus 4 equals 0. X minus 10 equals 0, and then you're going to isolate your x. So I'm going to track 4 on the left side. I'm going to have x equals negative 4. I'm going to add 10 to the right side. I'm going to have x equals 10. And I'm going to rewrite this as I said with my lower number first. So x, when x is equal to negative 4 or 10, y is 0. Sweet. Number 2, I can just tell you the answer right now. You can always... Oh, this is kind of an interesting one, so maybe I should just do it. So if you do the product sum game, because this is another basic trinomial, you want to multiply to 49, combine, negative 14. 49 is a square number, 7 times 7, but it's going to be 2 negative numbers that yield you 49, but I'm also going to subtract them, so that's going to win. So I'm going to have x minus 7. X minus 7 equals 0. I'm going to set both sides to 0. Well, they're going to be the same answer. So x equals 7 and x equals 7. So guess what the answer is? 7. So there's one solution here. Okay. Over here, I am going to try to get my x squared over here. I'm going to have 10x squared minus an x squared. In the interest of time, I'll just rewrite it as 9x squared minus 25. So I do not have a b term. I'm going to set it to 0. I notice that I have a difference of squares because these are both square terms. I'm going to take the square root of both, which is going to be 3x, and the square root of 25 is 5. And I'm going to rewrite them as the product of two binomials. Okay, I'm going to add those two factors and subtract them. Draw a line, set both equal to 0. 3x minus 5 is 0. I'm going to add a 5, 3x equals 5. So I'm going to have x equals 5/3, and one side 3x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5, 3x equals negative 5. So x is going to equal negative 5/3. So I have positive 5/3, negative 5/3. So x is going to equal positive or negative. Could write it that way, 5/3. But it is two solutions. Here I'm going to pull out. And again, I do urge you to press pause and really try to solve these on your own, and then you can watch me. It's really important that you try first before you watch my answer. Not that helpful just to like watch me do it and then not practice on your own, because I have no idea, or you have no idea if you got it or not. If I look at this one, this is greatest common factor, so that's what I'm going to start with. So let's see. Well, 4 goes into both, and so does x. So let's pull out the greatest common factor, put it aside, then divide. 12x squared divided by 4x, well, I'm going to have a 3x. 8x divided by 4x is 2. So those are my two factors. I'm going to set both to 0. So 4x equals 0. Well, that's just 0. And here we have 3x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 3x equals negative 2. And then x is going to be equal to negative 2/3. So x is equal to the set of negative 2/3 and 0. Okay. Number 5. I'm going to move my 26x to the left. So I have 2x squared minus 26x plus 80 equals 0. And, so here what I could do is, well, I have this coefficient here. Could I do slide and divide? Well, I could, but why don't we first start with the GCF, okay? They're all odd. I did not mean that. They're all even. So at least I could pull out an even number. Could I pull out anything else? No. So pull out your greatest common factor and put it aside. And then what's left over? Well, I should have an x squared minus 13x plus 40 equals 0. And now I'm going to do the product sum game. So I have greatest common factor and I have the prosum. I am trying to multiply to 40, subtract or add to negative 13. And I'm going to get, well, I know 8 times 5 is 40, and they're both going to be negative. And they add to negative 13. So I'm going to have 2, and then I'm going to put these in my two factors. And then once I solve, oh good, I'm still recording. That's a lot. Is I'm going to set all of these. Well, 2 is not equal to 0, so that's not going to work. X minus 8 is equal to 0. Well, then x is going to equal 8. X minus 5 equals 0. Well, then x is equal to 5. So my final answer is x is equal to the set of 5, 8. I'm not going to do this one. Oh, gosh. You know what? I am going to do this one because it's a different type of problem. That's okay. Okay, so greatest common factor, not going to work. Coefficient greater than 1, I have to do slide and divide. Slide and divide is probably my least favorite because there's just extra work to do. I'm going to multiply my 4. This constant is going to steal the 4. I'm going to rewrite this as 4 times 1. which is 4 equals 0. Product sum game, multiply to 4, add to 5. I think that's just going to be 4 and 1. And they're both going to be positive, so I'm going to rewrite this in my 2. X plus 4, x plus 1. And then my next step here is going to be dividing this constant in each factor by the original coefficient you stole. So let's do it. Okay, well that just means x plus 1 because 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then on this side is x plus, well, 1/4. I can't simplify it anymore so that I move this back. 4x plus 1 equals 0. Set to 0. So I have x is equal to -1 on this side. And then 4x plus 1 equals 0. And I'm going to have x. Well, it's going to be, I'm going to subtract 1, -1. Oh, it's going to be -1/4. It was -1/4. Oh, -1/4. -1. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the square roots. The square roots will be a little faster. And I don't know if I'm going to do them all. Let's just see how it goes. Square roots. So when I look at this, I see that these are both square numbers. So this is straightforward. So square roots, the best way to factor this, if they're both square numbers on both sides of the equal sign, just take the square root, right? And that's your answer. So x equals -15 or 15. For number 8, well, I would like, let's see, I'm trying to isolate my x. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 1. Add 1. 4x squared equals 49. That looks a little nicer. And then here I'm going to divide both sides by 4. I'm going to have x squared. Well, what's 49 divided by 4? Well, I'm just going to put that over there. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of both. So x equals the square root of 49, which is, here, I'll rewrite this, which equals 7/2. So I'm going to have plus or minus 7 halves. So the answer is x equals -7 halves or positive 7 halves. Okay. So I want to move this 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. X squared equals 98. Take the square root of both. X equals the square root of 98. Guess what? 98 is not a square number, but I know that 49, it also equals 49 times something. What could it be? 2. Okay, well that might work because 49 is, oh, that'll work. Okay, great. So if I take the square root of 49, it's going to be 7. So I'm going to take that out of that radical form. This square root of 2, it's not really a real number. So it's going to be positive or minus 7 square root of 2. I'm just going to keep it that way. Okay. Oops. So looking at number 10. Okay. So let's subtract 1. Subtract 1. 3/4 x squared equals 30. Now I want to get x squared alone. So what I want to do is divide. Well, if I'm multiplying 3/4 times x squared, I actually want to divide, which means by 3/4, which means I actually want to multiply by the reciprocal. So this is going to become, this whole thing is going to be times 4/3. Again, I'm just multiplying the reciprocal of this. So it's going to be x squared equals 30 times 4/3, which 30 divided by 3 is 10. 10 times 4 is just 40. Okay. Square root of both x equals, well, you may start to recognize this is not a square number, but I know 4, it equals times 10, right? 4 is a square number. So I could say 2, I could pull that square root out of it, times the radical of 10. And then that's the answer. Okay, what are we up to now? This is taking a long time. We're up to like minute 15. Oh no, my kids. Hold on, I'm gonna close the door. Completing the square, I'll be right back. Hey guys, I'm actually doing a video, okay? Hopefully you guys are trying this one. Oh, you can't even see it, that's hilarious. Okay, so I'm on the back, so completing the square. So with completing the square, I want to try to manufacture a square here. So let's get it into the right form, first of all. So I want to get it into the form of x squared, ax squared, if you think about it that way, plus bx equals c. So I want to move my constant over. So I'm going to rewrite this as x squared minus 18x equals negative 65. Now I'm going to take half of negative 18. I'm going to have negative 9, and then I'm going to square it. Equals 81. And I'm going to add that to both sides. So x squared, and if you don't remember this, just go back to that lesson, plus 81 equals negative 65 plus 81. X minus 9 squared equals, well, negative 65 plus 81. Oh, that's 16. That's good. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 9 equals plus or minus 4. X, well, I'm going to add 9 to both sides, right? So 9 plus or minus 4. And then 9 plus 4 is 13. 9 minus 4 is 5. So I can rewrite this as x is equal to 5, comma 13. Why don't I do 13? I'll do a couple more. I'm not going to do them all. Okay. So I want to get this into the right form. So I have an x here that I need to move. So 2x squared plus 8x equals a negative 14. Okay, and then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to divide out the 2. So I'm going to end up with x squared plus 4x equals negative 7. Take half of your term here. The dog is scratching at the door. Equals 4. And I'm going to add 4 to both sides. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals negative 7 plus 4. Adding, that comes from there. X plus 2 squared. Remember, I would do the product sum game, right? Oh my goodness. That's how I got that. Equals negative 3. Take the square root of both. And then I have x plus 2 equals square root of negative. Oh, man. Well, if you have a negative number in this, there's no real solution. So x equals no. Okay. Look at the answer key for the other two, but I urge you to try those other two. Maybe I'll do like 1 or 2 quadratic formulas, and then I'm going to call it. Okay, so if we remember the quadratic formula, I'm going to write it here. Oh my God, my dog is barking, scratching at the door because he really wants to learn. I hear you, sweet pea. I'm just going to plug in the numbers. So my A is 1, my B is 12, my C is negative 24. X equals negative 12 plus or minus. 12 squared minus 4, 1. Negative 24 over 2 times my A. X equals negative 12 plus or minus, well, 12 squared is 144. Negative 4 times negative 24. I'm going to be a positive, and I know it. 4 times 24 is 96. Over 2. X equals negative 12 plus or minus. When I add these together, I get a 240 over 2, which equals negative 12 plus or minus. Well, 16 times 15 is 240, so I'm going to get the square root, which is 4 of 16 times 15, which is not a square number, over 2. Divide both of these out, negative 12 over 2. I'm going to go into here, which is equal to negative 6 plus or minus. 4 divided by 2 is 2, square root 15. That is your answer. And last but not least, is number 17. Oh, Pepper. Let's see. This looks like it's in pretty good form. A equals negative 1, B equals 4, C is 9. But I need to get, see what I did here? I actually need to get this in standard form. So I actually need to subtract 9. So it has to be negative x squared plus 4x. I hope that you realize that, because I need to get that in standard form. Okay, so x is going to equal negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared, which is my b, minus 4. And then I'm going to just plug in my AC. I'm going to stick that all over. I don't know if you hear that. That's my dog scratching at the door. X is going to be equal to negative 4 plus or minus. Well, 4 squared is 16. And then, oh, that looks like a nice 36. Negative 2. X equals minus 4 plus or minus. Now 16 minus 36 is negative 20. Oh, I think you hopefully already see what's going on here. If the discriminant, remember this, anything under that radicand is called the discriminant. If that is a negative number, that means that there's no real number of a solution. Okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stick with that. Try these other 4, and then check the answer keys for those. Good luck. I'm going to go deal with my kids now.